Okay, now we are now streaming live.
Okay,
So Penny, if Barbara wants to go see, where's Penny? Oh, where's Penny?
she's in the
Oh,
office.
there's Penny. Yeah, if Barbara wants to go see this, she can go online at YouTube and go watch it later on, since she can't be here.
You're muted, Penny. I think she was saying something. Okay, there are a few welcome paragraphs. I don't think we need to read them, but did anyone have a comment or did they highlight anything in the welcome paragraph? Okay, well, I highlighted one thing that was italicized.
What page are you on?
Let's see, what page? 27. And that is life comes with storms. And we can't avoid that. Okay, let's
I guess that means when people ask, why do bad things happen to good people? Or, why did God permit this to happen? I guess the answer is life comes with storms.
yeah. It's true.
Life is a learning experience.
Yes, that's right. God's teaching us something.
Okay, let's go ahead and start the video. And the notes and comments are on page 28.
Man. Volume's not good.
Stories of Jesus healing the woman with the issue of blood and raising the daughter of Jairus to life. Both of those miracles took place in the city of Capernaum, located on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. In this session, we're going to focus on the sea itself. Now, as you read through the Gospels, you might get the impression that there are large bodies of water scattered across Israel. The Sea of Galilee, the Sea of Tiberias, Lake Gennesaret, Lake Kinneret. But those descriptors all describe the same body of water. Located about 60 miles north of Jerusalem, the Sea of Galilee is Israel's largest freshwater lake. It rests at almost 700 feet below sea level, which makes it the lowest freshwater lake in the world. The water in the sea comes from snowmelt and runoff from local mountains, which combine with the headwaters of the Jordan River to fill up a geographic bowl in the shape of a harp. This probably explains the original name of the lake, Kinneret, as the Hebrew word for harp is Kinnor. The Sea of Galilee is bounded on all sides by hills. However, on the eastern side, those hills can reach a height of 2,000 feet. And the mountains are a source of cool and dry air, while the climate around the sea is semi-tropical with moist and warm air. And when the cold air comes down from the mountain and mixes with the warm around the sea, it can create some furious storms. You might expect a sizable freshwater lake to be a popular place in Jesus' day, and you would be right. The people who lived near it, fished on it, drank from it, and traveled across it from town to town. However, as you will see in this session, a certain man residing in Capernaum caused quite a stir one night when he walked across that sea and did so in the midst of one of those raging storms. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side. And he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now, when evening came, he was alone there. But the boat was in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now, in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went walking to them on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled. They said, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them. And he said, "It is I. Be of good cheer. Don't be afraid." And Peter answered and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And so Jesus said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind and he saw the waves, he was afraid. And he sunk like a stone. Legato translation. And he began to sink, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" When he got into the boat, the wind ceased. Those who were in the boat came and worshiped him. And they said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The Sea of Galilee is relatively small, isn't it? I mean, when we read about it in Sunday school as a kid, I pictured it as big as the Pacific Ocean. 13 miles long at its longest, some 7.5 miles wide at its widest. Yet this diminutive state of the sea makes it more subjective to those winds that howl down upon the water out of the Golan Heights, turning this relatively calm body of water into what? A blender of 10-foot waves, up and down, up and down. It can happen several times over the course of a winter. And that's exactly what happened to the followers. The lake became a popcorn popper, lifting that boat, spinning it around, plopping it down. Lightning zigzagged through the dark sky. Thunder roared, thunder popped. And the disciples screamed. Galileans came to expect the storms. I'm thinking that Matthew, the tax collector, is wondering what in the world he's gotten himself into. And his arms are wrapped around that mast, and his cheek is pressed right up against the wood, and he's shivering from the cold. And the fishermen among them, they know exactly what's about to happen. And so they start rowing. They start rowing. They row the boat. But they do not get very far because they're rowing into the wind. And that night has come as that day came. with turbulence. Life comes with storms. Life comes with storms. The atmospheric conditions of this fallen world create a low pressure system that generates struggles and stress and challenges. I'm not telling you anything when I tell you no one gets through life scot-free. No one. No one. Not the old, not the young, not the rich, not the poor, not the healthy, not the unhealthy. Everybody has to face their share of storms. That person sitting to your right, they know what a storm is like. And that person in front of you, they know a storm or two. And that person to your left, yeah. And they've had to zip up the jacket and pull out the umbrella. And many of you are facing a storm right now. Peter and his fellow storm riders, they knew they were in trouble. They knew what these storms could do. They had weathered them before. Sunlight was a distant memory. Rain fell in buckets. Winds whipped the sails. And that boat lurched like a kite in a March wind. Matthew gives us the best description. The boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Could a more discouraging sentence be written? The boat was now in the middle, not near the coast, but in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves. Not just riding on the waves, but tossed, lifted 10 feet up into the air, and then plopped down into the valley. Between the next wave, they held on because here comes another wave. They could feel it, they couldn't see it because it was in the middle of the night, and the wind was contrary. No matter how hard they rowed, they could not make any progress. Has anyone seen Jesus? What do you mean? He told us to get in the boat. We only did what he said. He told us to do. He said, get in the boat. Didn't he say? Yeah, he said it. Where is he? I don't know. If only Jesus were here. I mean, it's one thing to be in a storm because you disobeyed. It's another thing to be in a storm because you did what you thought was right. And here you're in a storm anyway. But hang on to your hat. 9 hours. Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven, not eight, but 9 hours. They fought the storm. They couldn't get from one side to the next. But then, after 9 hours, the most remarkable thing happens. The disciples spot someone coming on the water. And they assume it's a ghost and they cry out with fear. Again, about 4 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water. They were scared out of their wits, one translation says. A ghost, they said, crying out in terror. They didn't expect Jesus to come to them this way. Neither did you. We expect him to come in the form of peaceful hymns, a nice morning devotion, Easter Sunday, or a quiet retreat. We never expect Jesus to come in the midst of a cancer diagnosis. We never expect that we'll see him most clearly when we're bankrupt. We never expect that just as the man breaks your heart, Christ enters the broken places. We never expect Jesus to come in the middle of the storm, but that's when he comes, because that is when he is most seen. Jesus responds to their fear with an invitation that is worthy of inscription on every church cornerstone. Here it is, transliterated, not translated, but word for word for word. Here's what the disciples heard. Courage, I am. Fear not. Percussive, staccato. Courage. He speaks courage into the storm. I believe he is not just calling for courage, he is releasing supernatural courage. Courage. Most translations have Jesus saying, "It is I," or "I am here." The literal translation is simply, "I am. I am." So Jesus here is not just announcing his presence on the sea. He is announcing his authority over the sea. I am. I am. And the waves perk. I am. And the winds begin to listen. I am. And the lightning retreats. Because I am is here. I am. I wonder if you would allow Jesus to proclaim his name over your problem. I am is spoken over your cancer. I am is spoken over your sadness and grief. I am is spoken over your concern for your children. I am. Is anybody going to help me? God says, I am. Is anyone listening? God says, I am. Is anyone coming? God says, I am. I am. I am came to the disciples on the storm, and with these words, Jesus declared himself to be the commander of the storm. Peter got the point. I know we pick on Peter, but Peter understood that all of a sudden the commander of the storm was present. That's why the scripture says, Lord, if you command me to come to you on the water, I will. Peter knew who was commanding the shots. And so Jesus did. And since Peter would rather be out of the boat with Christ than in the boat without him, Jesus had come. And when Peter had come out of the boat, he walked on the water to Jesus. As long as Peter's focus was on Christ, he had courage. But the very moment he looked somewhere besides the face of Christ, he was afraid. And he began to sink. Some years ago, I had a diagnosis that gave me some fear. I've had some issues with my heart over the last couple of years, or a few years. But a few years ago, there was one situation I had in which my heart would not stop beating so fast. I felt like I was running a marathon all day long. My heart rate was somewhere between 110 and 120 all day long. And it was like I was sending Morse code. And I was just exhausted. And finally, I got an appointment with the cardiologist. He checked me out. And he said, Max, I want you to go sit in my office. I'll come in and talk to you. You know, when I was in high school, I didn't like being sent to the office. And as a grown-up, I still don't like being sent to the office. But I went in and I sat in the office of the cardiologist, and I looked up on the wall and I saw one diploma after another. Now, this diploma from that university. Somebody else gave him a second degree from that university. Over here, his wife gave him the third degree. He had diplomas everywhere. And the more I saw his diplomas, the better I felt. In comes the nurse. She hands me a sheet of paper. And I read words like atrial fibrillation, arrhythmia, stroke, blood clot, and I felt myself begin to sink. And I realized I could either stare at the problem or I could stare at the accomplishments of the physician. And so I put the sheet to the side and I said, I think I'll read the diplomas. You will never lead a life absent problems, but you will always have a life in which you have the presence of the I am. So the I am shows up in the middle of your problems and he says, let me show you my diplomas. Let me show you who I am. Let me show you what I have done. And the Hebrew writer says we must pay closer attention to what we have heard so that we do not drift away from it. We must pay closer attention to what we have heard so that we do not drift away from it. Whatever it takes, my friends, pay closer attention to what God has done so that you do not drift away from it. Isn't it amazing that Jesus, so patient with Peter, extended his hand somewhere into these very waters and he pulled a sinking Peter up. And then within a moment, somehow the two of them supernaturally were in a boat. And the minute that Jesus was in the boat, the storm was still. Jesus wants to get in the boat of your struggles. He wants to get in the boat of your problems. He wants to get into the middle of it. Because he knows that once you face him, you will have courage to face your problems. If your problems are too big, your vision is too low, lift up your eyes and focus on him.
Any comments about the video?
I think that may be the same boat we were in on the Sea of Galilee.
I was gonna say that, also, I think it was the very same vessel that we were on 2 years ago.
Well, I noticed it had an American flag as well as an Israeli flag.
Yeah,
That was interesting.
no, I think we can't go here.
I really like how he emphasized that Jesus was commanding. He was very staccato in what he said. You know, it was just like business. You know, courage. I am. Fear not. And it was like he was taking control of the whole situation. I just kind of like that. It wasn't trying to, oh, don't worry, you're okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't nurturing. It was more forceful.
I thought it was interesting that Sea of Galilee, which is shaped as a heart. I did not realize that. I had the privilege of going 10 years ago and went on a boat on the Sea of Galilee. It loves that. And then I love the way he was talking about focus on what Jesus has done for us. And I think that it includes, you know, praising God for who he is and what he's done, and it kind of helps get our mind off of our own problems. And then at the end, I think he said, if I'm not mistaken, if the problems seem too big or vision is too low.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
I think he said it was shaped like a heart.
Did he say
Yeah.
heart? I thought he said
H-A-R-P.
Oh, thank you for clearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went back to look at the map and it looked like
Yeah.
heart.
Okay, thank you.
And
Yeah.
to me, that's incredibly observant of the people of that time, because
Yeah.
they're not able to get above it. To look
Yes.
down.
Well, except that it is surrounded by.
And mountains, that's right. It's 2,000 up, that's right.
Yeah.
So
So
I
maybe they
think
could-
it kind of get a.
You're right.
Yeah. And it's actually, technically, if you talk about all the waters in the world, it's not a sea, it's a lake.
Yeah, I
It's a
mean,
lake.
like,
It's a freshwater lake,
yeah.
but
They call it.
they called it a sea, so that's what we call it.
And very plentiful with fish, which is why there were, they did a lot of fishing and commerce further up the lake.
You know, he asked a question, I don't know if it's in the workbook or in this book, but what would you do if you saw Jesus walking on the water?
Mm.
And I said, I'd start to question my own sanity.
Yeah. No, not what we're expecting.
Because you wouldn't know it was Jesus at first. I mean, they did it. He was
Yeah.
too far away and they just thought it was, and you got all this rain coming down, so you can't see very well anyway.
Yeah.
And that's so outside our realm of
Right.
perception, it'd be much harder.
Expectations.
Yeah, expectations, no, I wouldn't think of it.
One thing I thought of, I mean, Jesus was fully human and fully divine. So I think of, maybe did he have any little bit of fear of walking along the water, but he knew that God was with him and he trusted, and so he went. I kind of wonder if he came and he knew fear not, so he knew that they all had fear. So maybe he recognized that's how they would probably feel, because some part of him knew it was a fearful situation.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, because I think that's the main reason Jesus came as human to, be able to feel what we feel. I mean, understand.
Yeah.
More how we feel.
Yeah. I don't know about culture in Israel, but Roman culture and most of the rest of the Mediterranean world, they did not learn how to swim. Sailors thought if you learned how to swim, you were guaranteed to die. So you didn't learn how to swim, you trusted your boat. So they all knew that, if the boat goes down, that's it. There's no hope at all, because you don't know how to swim.
And I think the Hebrews were scared, some of the Psalms allude to the fact that you would, you could drown if you went into water. And I think the Philistines, populated the coast and they were seafaring people, but the Jews, I don't think ever ventured into seafaring unless it was forced upon them. So,
I don't think there was a swimming event at the original Olympics, maybe.
there. The I am, does anyone remember where that was used before?
The burning
Scott.
bush.
The burning bush as God.
God's
So Christ was God and he could say, I am,
Yeah.
and he had authority over the water.
Can
Does
I share
anybody
something?
Go ahead.
I listened to, I guess, a theologian. I'm going to say I guess because I'm not quite sure what he was, but very interesting. And it was a reminder that God knows our name, and we know He knows every hair on our head. He knows us so well. And this, as this man was saying, He's with us always. And he says, when someone says, "What is your name?" or "Who are you?" "I am Mary. I am." I thought, that's a neat concept, isn't it?
Mhm.
Just ponder it.
Penny?
I was loving this referencing to I am too, Mary. I love that. That means we're part of God is in us when we say I am and then our name. That's a neat thought. But I was reminded of that Christmas song, "Mary, Did You Know?" And it ends with, "The sleeping child you're holding is the great I am." Because that's how God describes himself.
That's right. I am. I wrote down that Christ, he said, Christ is releasing supernatural courage. You know, I think he's saying there's courage and then there's the courage that we get from God, from Christ. And there is a difference. Any other comments?
I think the phrase that he said, I would rather be out of the boat with Christ than in the boat without him. I substitute the word world for boat, and I would rather be out of this world with Christ than in this world without him. Means something more to me now too. That this world would not be bearable without Christ.
Amen to that. Well, we'll take a break. Maybe in about 5 minutes, but on page. They don't number the pages.
Some of
On the
them.
bottom.
31. And it talks about the Sea of Galilee and how important it was. And the 4 of the disciples were fishermen. And I thought that his idea that Matthew was clinging to the mast because he was really out of his elements. It's good. But I wanted to just do a brief touch base on Tiberius and Barcova. I'm not probably mispronouncing that. Did anyone? I think Tiberius is on our map, right? Yes. And it south of Capernaum. Did anyone look up anything about this? Well, I did look up something. It was established by Antipas Herod, who was I think he was a son of Herod. And it's a beautiful seashore place, I guess, but John Whitting here put it on top of an old cemetery. And the Jews did not they avoided that place because they thought they would become defiled. But by the 200 AD, it had become a Jewish center of scholarship. And so that whole, and the Capernaum was a very strong center for the early Christians as well. So it's kind of amazing how places have significance as we move forward. The revolt, anyone talk about that? It was from 132 to 135 AD, and it was caused because Hadrian threatened to put a statue of Zeus in the old temple. And really, that's just cool. He also forbade circumcision. So, seems like the Jews were really threatened. You remember maybe about 100 years previous, the ruler at that time was killing off Jews. He was trying to rid people of their religion. So I was thinking about that Christ faced some really politically fearful times, even during his time and even for the early church. And the Romans were very hard pressed to defeat this rebellion because they used guerrilla tactics. And Hadrian had to send down a commander from England to quelch the revolt. And this, it was a real cost to the Roman army. And what he would do is he would isolate a group of guerrillas and kill them off, and then he'd run to the next one. but it took him a long time to quelch the revolt. And I think that, you know, that probably the Romans considered Israel to be a real hotspot, you know, because they were trying to squash the Jewish religion and also the Christian religion by the time, because they had their own state religion that they were trying to encourage and grow. How about we take maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes, just kind of stretch our legs. We'll come back and we'll do the questions, the table questions.
Are you
I'm
fam-
at the main door with the doorbell.
Yes, I'll go out there.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
I always think the 300 years it took,
Of what?
the 300 years it took from the time that Christ left us, was crucified, until Christianity was finally proved by the Roman Empire.
Yeah,
That's, and the number of generations, I mean, we're talking 15 to 18 generations of people during that period of time. That
yeah,
had to keep passing the message along and
Yeah.
strengthening Christianity.
and it wasn't
Until
easy, yeah.
it was finally approved.
And the Romans really looked at it, it was a threat.
It was a threat all the
Yeah.
time. Thanks to Constantine.
Just, you want to join this table?
I did.
I figured you don't be D by yourself.
Okay, unless you want me to do D and somebody wants to move over and join me, that works.
We can do D together, but we can maybe just sit here if you like. If you want to sit over there, that's fine too.
Okay, well, where's
Whatever's better. If you want to sit here. Yeah.
Since you get over your cold,
Yes, I'm fine now.
Sorry about being late.
Little congested.
Well, I'm
I'm
just
just glad I got here.
No, glad you got it.
I know.
Find a car that you have to take off the bumper to They said most cars are that way.
so are you gonna help on Saturday?
Yeah, no, Emily Clark, thank goodness, is doing the whole thing, the food
What I did?
vaccination clinic.
Okay.
On Saturday.
B and
She did it 2 weeks ago.
Zoom,
because-
so now we'll do D.
Thank goodness, she has helped out in every single one of them that we've had for the past 4 years. So it felt good, she knew what to do, and it's not.
It's
hard.
cancer research on this.
Yes, you don't need a cold, so at least
Have
we-
you in the roots?
No,
Yeah.
although I was looking online and it said probably about 2
And
or
now
3
I
months
am, but I
after you
was
get the last. Your immunity starts to wane, so you can get another shot. You can get a shot then.
I'll spin back over.
I'm just gonna
It's
go
not
get
that
your
first
shot.
big churches.
It wouldn't wane too much, because they give it to you more often than once a year, if it wanes too much.
That's true. Well, unless they're trying to cover
Have to be
the
at the
other
other places.
areas.
My church.
I don't.
Yeah.
Around 10 or 11, they started.
I'm gonna check with my doctor.
How many did you have?
And Kirsty and I. both
When you did
got
it
put
before,
with it.
was it the 14th?
What, for the flu shot?
Yeah.
I mean,
I have not seen how many they had.
they had about 15, I think, and they used them a lot, you know. and-
Oh, yeah, we had only 15 patients.
Like you'll have more this time?
I need more people, you know, more in.
It had just been approved by the FDA. I
She
think.
said,
Yeah.
I recommend Bible study.
Well,
It took our, they found out that he could.
ARC had plenty of them, so we were,
Yeah.
and HEB did also.
Well, hopefully he
So
knows.
he was just crashing.
Same amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, the big chains can get a lot. He's just a small harvest. It's a little harder for him
I
to-
don't know why.
And I'll just
We found out.
add a point, that wants to get their shots over at because they can't get them.
Yeah.
HEB on the Monday afternoons, always has 2 pharmacists on board.
Oh,
One of them can give shots starting at 1 o'clock,
join this group.
End of the year.
Do you have to have an appointment?
You can try to do it online, but we failed to be able to finish the form out.
Oh.
We just dropped that and we're taking a meeting.
Oh, yeah, I'm Episcopalian.
And got
I go to St. Michael's
flu,
Episcopal.
COVID, just.
Guess we're gonna travel. and get that
Yeah, we're
COVID
traveling.
Sharon,
Wanna
right?
be sure we're protected.
You all
Yeah.
voted to be.
Yeah.
Seems like everybody that travels is the one that gets COVID.
Yeah, you know, we're gonna wear masks. I think it's worse in airports than it is on airplanes.
Yeah, airplanes have come, I've read that they've got the system that
Yeah.
99% is filtered out.
But it's just all these people walking around here, it's close together.
Unmasked and,
And
yeah.
some of us come back from trips and
Yeah.
bringing things with them.
So one time I got COVID, at the airport, I forgot for 45 minutes to put my mask on.
You think it was in that
And
45?
I think it was in that 45 minutes. I mean, I went to a retreat, but it was a whole lot of fellow Christians and I really trusted everybody. It's like I trust you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I wear masks when I go in the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough that I'm in that vulnerable group, so.
Judy Ratliff has just come back from Minnesota and has COVID.
Yeah,
Oh, poor Judy.
Judy Ratliff. She's.
She sits at that table.
Yeah,
She's on
Yeah.
Is she gonna join Bible study? I sure hope so. Oh. Yeah, she could, I'm assuming, huh?
Reminder, it's not too late.
I think somebody told us, oh, Darlene did,
Early.
that Judy got the COVID on Colorado like her trip. She went to Minnesota and then down to Colorado.
Over there.
Yeah,
Okay.
she did a friendship course trip to Colorado.
And she, the first half of the trip, you know, practically everybody got the COVID, so they canceled the second half of the trip.
Oh, really?
So it's so prevalent right now, you got it. I
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's.
It's hard not to.
Yeah. It's just all over, it seems.
Okay, let's get started. We're going to do the discussion questions, which are on page 32 and 33. And, let's go ahead and if you want to discuss in your group for, I don't know,
I'm gonna send all you Zoomers off.
5 minutes. And then, we'll come back and, hear our answers.
We have questions too.
Okay, they're going.
Okay, we have questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, question two, the second one to Jesus miracle. They were terrified.
Those who were in.
What makes them their fears. So what is
Jesus doing while the disciples were
Don't be afraid, take her.
Why do you think Jesus told the disciples to get in both?
And I looked up the Eastern translation.
Look up verse 31.
The first one
Well,
said
Bible
take
says
heart,
Jesus
second
was told
said
to
take
five
courage,
hours.
and the third
Why
one just
did
said
they go
courage.
to a mountain to
And those who.
They all three said it is out.
been killed, so that's part of it.
Two of them said do not be afraid, and one said don't be afraid, so it's like.
This was about that.
Just
So I guess.
slightly different from.
And I could tell them about it.
Yeah, and so.
They recognize it.
And one is
Well,
gender is
strange
response.
And the significance was.
He said that
Jesus
yeah.
knew, yeah, they're probably gonna.
Courage, I know. And what is that about this power?
Strengthen their faith.
So we all the power
To give Jesus an opportunity to show that he is strong in any storm.
Plus, we all have to go through troubles.
Yeah.
Declaring.
I think it's good answer.
Maybe that's a close to-
Maybe it's just-
to the cross.
Yes, yeah. It wasn't Jesus's job to shelter the disciples.
So wants to answer.
the message.
And we've got two questions in chat. Somebody can read this.
Get a chuckle out of these TV creatures. You know, prosperity gospel,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
once they
That's fine.
put their heart, Jesus, everything's gonna be good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not.
and so we can answer the first question in this.
You know, it gave me a lot of comfort to know there's an answer when people say, why did something bad happen? That's something.
Okay. Yeah, so.
You know, I did what I was supposed to do, why didn't it turn out right? Well,
Yeah, read the
now
first
here's a
sentence, so that
perfect
just
example.
says,
The
then read the
disciples
first
did,
question,
oh, I was
then
actually told
false.
them to do. They didn't.
And then the next question,
do it.
And then I'll take the.
They got into a storm.
Verse 31 reads.
But the storms are teaching them. I mean, they teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
Okay, what impact?
Don't do that again.
And I think it's the old thing too, when we know something intellectually, but emotionally. Intellectually, they knew Jesus was there and Jesus would take care of it.
That's what I always think.
But when Peter saw Jesus, he was gone. But when he took his focus off Jesus, all of a sudden the emotional part took over.
Yeah.
Yes, he says,
You know what I mean?
And we had to fight that to our dying days.
Yeah,
And I said.
I mean, you know, but
yeah. And that's exactly what the disciples got in that boat. You know, they trusted Jesus. They persevered, but then they got.
yeah, when they saw those waves.
Paraphrase it.
I'm gonna die, you know.
And not knowing, not keeping their eyes on Jesus. And
Yeah,
they're
but
supposed to do
the thing
things.
was really there.
Yeah.
I realized a couple nights ago, the light was out because I sit in front of the place at night against
I
glass.
think it's a point where you
Hello.
journey.
Oh, it's not
Learning that
So.
this is just,
Yeah, well.
this person is
What
not
I
just
wanted.
man, not just human, also.
So what part do you want to say? What do you have an answer for it?
And they weren't
I'll
even
read it
here.
and let you answer. Your answer is.
Yeah, I'm only pretty good.
Like they realized it and then they forgot.
You want to do it, Mark?
No, I mean, we all
Right.
say an answer.
Yeah.
Really different than ours.
And they came out and said that, we can't do this because we can't get to it. And then I got on YouTube yesterday. They were able to started checking out how to change things.
People watching on YouTube would have dead
Which
space.
is what
Yeah.
people at O'Reilly's.
Yeah, I don't know what
Holding against the manager of O'Reilly's. Never needed to make Glenn. Well, and I felt a couple of because the last 2 years of Harvey, it seemed like there's always something going on. That's why it's going on. Another year was the little light bulb.
I think on YouTube you can fast forward the backs. It's because it's a video basically.
You know, he said, I think.
Are you gonna say that?
Yes. He said, I would
Yes,
try.
yes, I thought it was
more.
So where's he going to school?
University of Colorado.
And they said.
Do you like it so far?
Well, as far as I can tell.
What's her name?
And they said, we can't send to you until.
Recording artists.
So you did on cars.
September. Inspection was gone.
Well, what do they say?
The second one is.
Engineer.
Come back and then.
He was producers for
Get a ticket.
studios.
Yeah.
Which I don't.
So, on different places.
So called.
So
It's like.
he could in radio.
Well, you have to leave.
Video games
All day.
Maybe overnight. Used to video games.
I'll look that up. I did it for years.
Having someone
So
come and tell you about.
when I got healthy.
I'm gonna take away.
Didn't know how tired. So when I went to go ground right.
That would be the same.
They said for Congress that AI was gonna take some of their.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Or rebel
And I was
lawyers.
very pleased with.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
his research in AI.
all you need.
Yeah.
And something battery and stuff.
Yeah.
You was
Yeah.
wanted to sleep.
It's really gonna change your world.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, oh my God. And they don't.
One more minute, guys.
And they don't support, yeah, when I started going there, but
Just like every time our solutions come through,
okay.
we adjust and we find other jobs.
I don't do that.
You know.
That's it, the kids are going to like
I
our
called the ER
granddaughters and You know,
They
it's
said, no,
gonna
you
be hard for
cannot be
them to
with
job.
Monday.
With AI.
They said, you have to leave it all day.
Yeah.
Is there a place to wait?
But they're early
No, you
on,
don't
they
have a
can
place
still,
you can
I
wait.
think,
Have somebody
make
who's-
adjustments.
Somebody
It's the
to,
people who
you
are
know,
like
when you're by yourself, that's
and
pain.
fifties.
So
already
call
set
the
your
rush
taxes
automotive
when you
people.
got in a certain.
They
to a
said,
certain
sure, we
level.
can do you in the
Yeah,
morning.
and then
And
you might
got
have to.
PT this
check out.
afternoon, 2, and I thought, can I be done by 2? And they said, oh, yeah, they said, you should be done in about. 4
Okay,
hours. So
we got
here,
1 minute.
it's Bible study.
Right.
Okay. Get all the way around by 8 o'clock in the morning.
But you made it.
Yeah, and then I couldn't believe they got done. I mean, they said, we're gonna, that's awesome. Yeah. And it was like $200 instead of 500 or something. I mean, so it's like, oh, yeah, we're good. And they told me
AI is
they
like,
own
it's gonna
this.
make our world
It's
come,
focused.
yeah, chaotic in a while, but I just have faith that.
They said
We'll
those
figure it out.
things are
Apologize.
amazing.
You're gonna still be-
It's
like when you call
over on
and you don't fit into a,
79.
you know, when you call
They
a call
don't do
center
the
and
inspections,
like
they
for-
don't do the inspection.
prescription or something, you wanna ask the
They
pharmacist
said
a
go there
question.
because
Yeah.
I'm tired
You've
of
gotta go
every
through
time I
all
think
these
about
every-
words.
Yes.
They-
And there's, you gotta, I just wanna speak to somebody. I just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he said, no, you should be good. I'm gonna go around rock.
Coming back.
No, not really. I live in 183 and what? 183 and
Okay. Okay, even though Max Lucado read the passage, let's just read it one more time. Would someone like to read,
Yeah.
let's see, Matthew 14:22 to 33.
I can read it.
Thank you.
The heading, Jesus walks on the sea. Oh, this is the New King James Version. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now, when evening came, he was alone there, but the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now, in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking in the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And Peter had come down from the boat. He walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshiped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God."
Thanks. Okay, table A had question 1, and let's go from there.
I'll read the question, then she's going to read the answer. Ask someone to read the story of Jesus walking on the water in Matthew 14:22 through 33, which I just did. What was Jesus doing while the disciples were in the storm? Why do you think Jesus told the disciples to get in the boat ahead of him, knowing they would face a storm?
Well, Jesus was dismissing the 5,000 that they had just fed. And then he was going up to the mountain to pray. John the Baptist had just been killed, so he was probably still mourning that death and talking to God about that. Then why do you think Jesus told the disciples to get into the boat? He was telling the disciples to get into the boat, I think, was another test of their faith and an opportunity to strengthen their faith. Jesus knew that they would probably hit storms. And in fact, I made a note in my Bible here that that first verse, what says, then he made the disciples get into the boat. And that word made is forced them. So they were reluctant to get into the boat. I think that they did not want to, and he forced them to do that. So he knew that this was going to be a learning opportunity. I think he knew they would probably hit a storm and knew what he was going to do about it. But this was an opportunity he wasn't here to protect them. He was here to teach them and to test them. Yeah,
In fact, I'm thinking Jesus created the storm,
maybe. Yeah,
part of the test,
yeah. Yeah,
because they probably wouldn't have boarded the boat, even if he said if the storm was already raging out there, why are you gonna, nobody's gonna go out of the boat.
yeah, in the middle, overnight,
They probably left.
and they were supposed to go out in the middle of the lake. Jesus,
Yeah.
that was.
They were crossing.
Yeah, crossing, yeah, they were,
But they
Yeah.
just couldn't make headway.
yeah.
Since you used the word made them, just a little human thing is just maybe he just wanted peace and quiet away from them.
Yeah, yeah, that, yes. That could have been
I mean, to
too.
separate yourself from 5,000 followers.
Yeah. He wanted
Speak out.
some me time for a while.
He needed to have that one-on-one with God.
Yeah.
This had been a really, very turbulent day for him, right? Because he heard about John the Baptist and then 5,000 people that he.
That's another example of how important it is for us to have the same thing.
Any other comments? Okay, table B had question 2.
Okay, question 2 starts out with a sentence. When the disciples saw Jesus walking on the water, they were terrified and thought he was a ghost. Question 1, what did Jesus say to calm their fear?
I looked it up in 3 different Bibles, New English, NIV, and New Jerusalem. At the beginning, take heart, take courage, courage. All 3 said, it is I. Do not be afraid or don't be afraid was the end of it. So they were all very, very similar.
Second question is, what is the literal rendering of his response? And what does it say about his power over the storm?
Thank you. I think he was showing that he is God, he is I am, and he will calm every storm. And I think for us, it's encouraging us to trust him and have faith. And to remember too that it might not always work out exactly the way we want, but he will be with us in every situation.
And that can be a hard lesson.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Max Lucado said the word courage at first, and all our Bibles say take heart. And I guess courage does come from your heart. Maybe.
And my translation, 2 of them said courage.
Just said courage?
One said courage, one said take courage.
Okay,
Just like take heart.
take heart.
Does anyone have a different translation for take heart or courage or take courage?
Did you look up the message?
Yeah. Faint heart. What got into you?
It says take courage.
It says, be of good cheer.
Be of good cheer.
It is, I, do not be afraid.
Huh.
He mentions that Christ gives supernatural courage. How would you define that? I mean, what's the difference between courage and supernatural courage that we get from God? I don't know. I'm asking.
there's some situations in life where, I mean, you're scared to take a test because you didn't study enough and you know you didn't quite. And you go in and you take it anyway, but it's courage, you went ahead and did it. I think there's some of those situations where people call you a hero afterwards, take the supernatural courage. And it's not something you can prepare for, but except that deep in your heart, you're prepared, but on the surface, you're nowhere close to prepared. It just happens to you. Your deep heart takes over.
And you can't, supernatural courage is something you can't do it. It takes God to do it through you.
I just found another translation from the Common English Bible. You man of weak faith, why did you begin to have doubts?
Oh.
You man.
Instead of lifting them up and encouraging them, he's attacking them.
Yeah,
Yeah. That they had weak faith.
Which they did.
Yeah.
It's easy to have weak faith if you're about to get sunk in the boat.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts is that as long as Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he was fine. He was walking on water too.
Yeah.
And as soon as he took his eyes off of it, that's when he started singing.
I'm walking on water. Whoops, no, no.
Yeah, and I think, you know,
I'm sure.
if we could just have that strong enough faith to
Yeah.
always keep our eyes on Jesus, not get caught up in the, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you know.
In the storms of the world.
Yeah, that we,
I was saying to Marty, if we concentrate on something and just, you know, keep that in the center of what we're doing, you're fine. But as soon as you drift, in this case, you sink.
well, I know like in PT, I'm working on a lot of balance issues. And so, you know, they'll have me focus on a certain place on the wall or something, you know, and it's a lot of the exercises they have me do, have me holding something or reaching and doing all this, and so when you take your focus off that point, that changes your balance. And you know, listening to the Olympics, I remember them saying that the gymnasts are taught that when you're on the balance beam, you keep your eye on the end of the balance beam. And I just thought, wow, you know, that's how there's a focus again, and it was just kind of the same thing, it's look at the paper.
Okay, table C, question 3.
We probably pretty much already answered it. But, Peter took a bold step of faith by walking on the water toward Jesus, but he started to sink when he saw the wind. Jesus caught him and asked why he doubted. For 20 versions of verse 31 now. Why do you think we likewise tend to doubt Jesus's ability to calm our storms?
We have to take our eyes off of Christ, basically, focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when thought that occurred to me, in the abstract, we all think Jesus has the ability to do anything, you know, all of that, but we have our own personal crisis, then the test happens and we get distracted by the circumstances of our crisis. And our storm feels big and we forget that Jesus is bigger, but then as the thing that you pointed out earlier was if the problem's too big, our focus is too low, our vision is, yeah. And that fits right into this. Yeah.
Okay. D,
Yes.
table D, and that's Diane.
You wanna read the question? I'll read it.
What impact did Jesus' miracle have on those who were in the boat that night? Why is that significant?
When Jesus said, I am, disciples recognized him as the Son of God. Thus, the storm calmed. Jesus will calm our storms when we recognize him as the Son of God too. And Have faith.
And the Zoomers had question 7A.
Our question says, put yourself in the disciples' place. If you were on a boat in a storm and saw a figure walking on the water, what would you think? We thought we would think the same thing as the disciples, but we do have a frame of reference that they did not have. So maybe our fifth or sixth thought might have been, wait a minute, I remember a Bible story about this. Could that be Jesus? Maybe we would eventually come to that conclusion, but we weren't guaranteeing anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially if it'd been after 9 hours in the dark in a storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
When
And
you're.
we had no engine and we only had our oars is all they had, right? They didn't even have a sail. Sail would have been useless.
Yeah.
And they were rowing into the wind, so the sail would not be of assistance.
No. So then it says, how has Jesus approached you in unexpected ways or unexpected places or through unexpected people? And we had various people that said things. We never really came to a big conclusion. But we talked about one instance of being out in nature and seeing a sunset when you're driving north on 183 at sunset. And all of a sudden there's this huge panorama in front of you of what God has painted for you in the sky. And you realize how beautiful it is. And I always think, oh my gosh, he does this every single night. And I don't always see it and say thank you. It's always different. It's always beautiful.
Yeah.
And a creation of a new baby, when you hold a tiny baby and look at the absolute perfection of that baby, every little detail, the tiny little fingernails, the tiny little eyelashes. It's just so fascinating. There's no way that could not happen without God's hand. Anybody else want to share their thoughts about that part?
Well, I went physical. This is all we were saying. This is can be both physical and mental, or because I don't remember an incident of me maybe dangling somewhere over crocodiles, and all of a sudden I'm saved. But not being silly. But I do know there have been times I'm driving with my mind elsewhere, and whoa, thank you, God, I stopped. Or something took place at that moment. And so that's what we consider maybe physical. Penny's was more emotional and within us. And these men in the boat, well, I think they were first physical, and then I guess Jesus explained in his way, rebuking them. You know, he rebuked a lot, didn't he? But he, I don't know, to get his point across, I don't know, but that's beyond my understanding. But he did explain to them, do not lose faith, and that becomes more emotional. And so I guess we can think of all kinds of instances, both something physical as quick thinking as my car driving, and as beautiful as Penny's emotional feeling. And then we can let our mind wander and enjoy it. Penny's is more enjoyable than mine.
Does anybody have anything they remember in the past in their life that?
Well, during the last ice storm, I lost electricity, my phone had died, I'm in the cold, I'm in the dark, no flashlight because the phone's dead. And I'm hearing the limbs boom on the roof of my house. And I was just so panicked and stressed out. And I just kept, trust God, trust God, trust God. And I pray and recite Psalm 23 and different things. And I swear that's the only thing that got me through that night. I have told my daughter, I said, if they put the device, I am coming down because I just can't ever deal with it. I don't think that was just so horrible to me. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I mean, I did trust God. I asked for prayers and I felt for all prayers. I mean, I was sitting in the hospital that night. I know you've heard me say this. And I just felt this overwhelming feeling of love and that I didn't have the diagnosis yet, you know, I had the surgery. But it was just like, everything's gonna be okay. And it was, and I do believe in this. All those prayers, thank you.
Yes.
When my husband was diagnosed with cancer and was going through the chemo and the radiation, it was not a good time. It was all like, you know, fear of if he was gonna die, which he eventually did. But we talked about it, when he was, probably about a month into it. And except for the fact that he was in some pain and discomfort, it had been a wonderful experience. God had been with us the whole time. Absolutely magnificent care from a whole myriad of specialists. I mean, he was in there for cancer, but we had a heart doctor that we had to just kind of, God had surrounded us with his love and we felt it and we were aware of it. You know, so I mean, really, in so many ways, it was a very blessed time, except for the fact that he died.
I had, many of you may know that, last fall, I started driving Linda Raybuck around Thursday mornings. She's a member here at this church and she can't drive. So every Thursday morning I go over to her house and take her out shopping or errands, whatever she needed to do that week. And, you know, I thought, oh, good, you know, I get to help her. And I felt really good about that. And it didn't take me very long to realize that she was teaching me so much about giving, that spending 2 or 3 hours with her in the car, and she would talk. She was on a fixed income. Her husband had died over 10 years ago, and she had Social Security, and she worried every time we go to the pharmacy how much the bill was going to be and whether, you know, she had enough. But almost every time we went out, she had to stop at Dollar Tree or Walmart or someplace to buy things for the kids at the church here, or to buy cards to send to people. And she was constantly giving, even though she was on this fixed income and didn't have much herself. And it just taught me so much that I got so much more out of that. I did not expect that at all. And it was wonderful.
And I could add on to that story with Drive a Senior stories. Some of the clients that you drive are just amazing people. They are so grateful that you have taken them where they need to go. And they're so appreciative, but you learn so much about people. I find that there's certain ones that I just look for, oh, where do they need to go this week? And then I'm willing to take them because the story continues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my way of also promoting, hey, had a few hours a week and Drive a Senior. Because it really is a wonderful program and every one of the clients is so great.
I want to follow up on Reeves' comment. I drive a senior with this nice gentleman named David and David Phillips, and he sometimes gives me Bible chapters to read that are like, this is what I needed today. And you know, on the ride home, he's explaining that this is a good chapter for you to read. He says, you read this chapter, and I follow his guidance. I think he's very nice. Very nice driving seniors.
Yeah.
You know, a different take, this about seeing Jesus walking on the water. They teach us in college and in high school all about the scientific method And you can't break the laws of gravity, you can't break the laws of nature. And this is a breaking of the laws of nature and of gravity.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that would be hard to accept with the background of science.
Even for, even for the people of all times, walking on water is not something that we can do. I mean, it's.
But then
Unless
again-
you realize that the person breaking the laws is the one who created the laws.
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
He created them, so
That's
Amen.
he can break them.
Any more comments or anything else to say?
I think if I can just extend that sentence
Mhm.
and showing us that love is a great spot.
Yes.
Love is the greatest law, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're going to end a little earlier unless someone else has something else to say.
One other thing to say, this Saturday, we're having our flu and COVID vaccine clinic again, from 9 to 1 here at the church. So if you need your COVID and flu vaccines, just drive on by and we can get you settled for it. We'll have lots of COVID.
Don't even have to get out of the car.
Don't even have to get out of the car.
We just need our insurance card, right?
Yes, just bring your insurance card, if you're on Medicare, your drug coverage card
And-
specifically.
Is it by Liberty Pharmacy?
Yeah. Yeah, same guy who's always done it. And Mary Consuela, you're welcome to drive all the way here for it if you want to.
We would like to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Mary.
It'll be worth it. It's cooler here than it is where you are.
Yes.
It's not cool here.
Okay.
Well, that front supposed to come in this afternoon,
Yeah.
so. I think we're
Let's-
saying 60 tonight.
Oh, that'd be
That'd be fun.
let's pause for just a brief word. Thank you, dear Lord, for helping us learn more about you and your wonderful creation and the love that you show us. Help us to think and act to glorify you. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Okay, see you guys next week.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes,
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
Next week's lesson is already there on the